Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
The First Lady of New York Radio, Joan Hamburg, entertaining and informative. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Welcome, guys. Welcome, everyone, to the Joan Hamburg Show. And I finished reading Huma Abedin's book. And believe me, it wasn't hard. I don't even want to tell her that she made me stay up till 1:45 the other night to finish. And I had started reading it, and then I kept reading. You can't stop. You can't put down Both and A Life in Many Worlds, Huma's brand new book. And it's her memoir. And not only is it about a time that seems forever ago, but seems so important to us, almost 20 years, maybe more, public service with Hillary Clinton. The book talks about Huma's family and what it was like to grow up with a foot in many different worlds. It talks about her time as chief of staff at the Department of State. It talks about her marriage, her relationship to former Congressman Anthony Weiner, about her kid. But no matter what it talks about, you finish this book with a sense of possibility, of hope, and how important, no matter what your situation is in life, never give up. Go through it, make it work for you, and try to understand without knocking yourself down. And I thought it was a brave, incredible, and certainly time-consuming thing to do, to write a memoir like this. And I know that you probably locked yourself up for months at a time. I don't know how you did it.
Well, first of all, Joan, I'm so thrilled to be talking to you, and thank you for everything you said about my memoir, my story, my journey. I loved writing about it. Actually, writing it was therapy. I would lock myself away at friends' houses or at home and would go back and forth, taking a break and writing, because, it was a big journey. And it is, as you described, I cover a lot of different aspects of my life, my professional life, my marriage, my early family history. And I really wanted to do all of it justice, my parents, my boss, and really for my son. Because in the end, this book is really for him. It's for my father and my son is how I best describe it, and all the women in my family, the matriarchs in my family, my grandmother, who's the reason I am where I am today, this really bold,
right,
ambitious young woman.
And from your grandmother, who, ahead of her time, was filled with ambition. Going to school was a major undertaking, and she did.
That's exactly right. An 8-year-old in 1910, a little girl in India at a time when little girls were not sent to school to be educated. And I think about her a lot. And it's this notion of what was it in her as an 8-year-old girl that just gave her the idea, the intuition, the feeling that she needed to go to school and be educated. And she was. And every time I've gone on a trip or been on Air Force One or traveled to all these incredible spaces and places or been in meetings and been on these incredible campaigns, I really is a testament to the commitment she had to improve her own life. And as a result, the life of her daughter, her children, and grandchildren. And I'm a direct, result of that.
Right. But isn't it, when you think back, especially after writing a book like this that covers everything from childhood to your amazing family and the loss of your dad much too young, and having to deal with that, what a coincidence things are that as a kid, 21 years old, to apply as a college intern at the White House. I mean, how does that happen? And the thing is, most people would say, oh, I don't have a shot. And, nice thought, and let it go. Yeah. But you carried it through, and to your shock, you got the job, which was the beginning of your journey.
Joan, I spend a lot of time, which I've really enjoyed doing this, talking to students and traveling around the country, talking to students about, their plans and their ambitions. And I always tell them, that was a lark. I wasn't sure I would get the internship. I had a friend who was interning at the White House. I was going into my senior year at George Washington University. I was studying to be a journalist. My ambition was to be Christiane Amanpour. I thought I had a clear path laid ahead of me. And this was sort of presented to me. It was really a gift in a way, a suggestion from a friend who said, why not apply for the internship? And I did it with low expectations, but I did it, and got it. And the minute I walked in to the White House in September 1996, when Bill Clinton was president and Hillary Clinton was a, barrier breaking first lady. And it was, I just fell into, it became an addiction. It was sort of I fell in love with public service, with the work in government, the feeling that you could do so much to help people. It was an incredible, extraordinary journey that started that fall.
And the fact that you ended up working for Hillary Clinton, who, even though in the beginning you said, I didn't know what to do, nor should you or could you have that time, but she was there caring about you and whomever else was in her circle. And, to this day, we mourn that crazy election because we need her and people like you in the political world more than ever.
One of the things that, I've spent a lot of time talking to people who say, what would you do something differently? Could you, if you had gone back? I mean, the notion of not having that ability to walk into Hillary land, which is what we call the environment of, anyone who's been in either in her office or in her environment, it becomes a member of this club where really it comes from the top down. This idea that she believes that the way we all get better is to have smarter people at the table. There's always more space at the table when you work for Hillary. And I, as you mentioned, I was 21. I had no idea what I was doing. And I think one of the best pieces of advice that women who I worked with said was, you really, so much of what you do in life is just judgment. It's just you either, and making decisions and having the confidence in yourself and your capacity to succeed, even when you are scared. And I still do spend a lot of my professional life uncertain. And am I going to be good at this? And am I going to be good at that? The first interview I did was 2 months ago. It was the first time I spoke really publicly. And I was terrified. But I know that Hillary believed I could do it. She's always had that kind of, she has our back, those of us who work for her and work with her. And as you noted at the beginning of your question, I do think it was an extraordinary loss for our country that she was not elected president in 2016. There was nobody more qualified, smarter, better prepared than her. She is a problem solver by nature. That is how she operates. And, I'm privileged to have had this last quarter century of time working with her.
So do you think that Hillary Clinton is going to be politically active again? We've got midterms. Will she appear with candidates? Does she have any ambition? She always has ambition, but the kind that she can really use. This is such a crazy time in American politics and in American life.
It does feel like a crazy time in American politics and American life. I think the pandemic, this global pandemic, has threw everyone for a loop. And the world that any of us anticipated we'd be living in a post-2020 world is just not, it just isn't, we were talking about this earlier, just New York, I live in Manhattan, and it just still doesn't feel the same as it felt pre-2019. I think Hillary is on the record as saying she will always be engaged and involved in public service. She will certainly help in ways that she can help in the midterms. She's already been doing a few things for candidates, and she'll continue to do that. And whatever this administration needs to, in terms of support from her, she's only a phone call away. And I'm glad that she's been engaged privately, people calling her for advice. And it is going to be all hands on deck. The midterms will be hard. The midterms are always hard
But
for
harder
any
than
party.
ever.
And harder than ever. I agree. And every campaign, I mean, the way I was raised in politics is you run every campaign as though you're losing. And that's just the way to do it. And that's how she ran in 2000. And she won some elections and she's lost them, as the entire world, I think, knows. But anyone who's running in the midterms is going to have to approach it that way. And I think we're all clear-eyed, at least those of us in the Democratic Party, that it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. And but we can either complain and say it's going to be really hard, what do we do, or just get to work and
do it.
Just get our message out and do it, and get voters energized. I mean, it's been an exhausting time, and emotionally, mentally, and so how do we get people engaged? How do we get people excited? How do we get people energized to come to the polls? And that's going to be work.
Yeah, it's going to be work, and we need Hillary Clinton or a Hillary whatever out there to get people all excited again, like the virus, which we're so sick of. We're so sick of these people we elected. Like, what happened to them? It's like they got elected and suddenly worse than we can imagine. And it's not just the other party, it's both parties who have not behaved.
Well, this administration certainly, I mean, inherited.
They're trying.
I mean, it is, there was such, this is obviously my personal opinion, but the mess that they inherited, I mean, Joe Biden had his job cut out for him, and they are out there every single day doing the best they know how. And here's the one thing I do know as somebody who's been in politics or was in politics for 25 years is many of these people in the administration are people I have worked with. I worked with them in the Clinton White House. I worked with them in the Obama administration. These are qualified people. They know what they're doing. They're true patriots, and they've got a lot of incoming. And so every day, it's easy to criticize when you're on the outside. I've been on the inside too. And so to know that there are decisions that they're making that are complicated, I get it. I know it's not easy. I don't envy them. I don't envy anybody who has a job in Washington. But I obviously will support the work that they're doing, and I think they're gonna figure it out. When I have confidence that it's we have a president who knows what he's doing, and he's doing it at his own pace and his own way, and we just have to I have faith, but it doesn't mean that it's not been a hard time.
No, I agree with you, and he has done a lot of very important things. The problem is we're used to yellow screamers, assertive, and he comes across as very low-key and very quiet. So we have to send him to the radio school of speech making so that it's in your face and it's happening now. And that's sort of part of the problem. But let's go back to you. Today we're celebrating Huma's new book, her memoir, and it's both/and. It's the story of her coming of age and what happened thereafter, and what it's like to grow up in many different worlds. And interesting that you and your siblings, even though you were brought up in, as I said, several different cultures, you really identify with being American. I would say that's true of all of you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I was born in Michigan. I have immigrant parents, Indian father, Pakistani mother. They were both Fulbright scholars. Met at the University of Pennsylvania, and they did. I mean, they were grateful to have received, a waiver to stay in this country because they came from two different countries and countries that were in conflict with each other. It was not so long after the partition of India into East and West Pakistan. So they couldn't go back to their respective homes. This country welcomed them. They were always grateful for that. I was born in Michigan. And then when I was 2, my father was given essentially a terminal diagnosis of renal failure and told he had 5 to 10 years. And so they went on this adventure. I'm so grateful to my parents that they took us. We moved to Saudi Arabia, and then every summer, they were both academics, we had the summers off, and we would travel all over the world. And sometimes I feel bad. My son will come to me and he'll show me something that he's found on his iPad about tsunamis in Asia. And I think, oh my God, when I was his age, I was walking down the streets of Jakarta and Tokyo and Shanghai. And I mean, we were out in the world. I mean, we did have that gift. And I think it gave me a different perspective, certainly from people around me when I was both at the university and at the White House. I hope we can refine that in a world where things seem to be so much more either or these days. That's why the book is called Both And, that we have to stay true to our own principles and values and identity. I mean, everywhere we traveled as Americans. And I think my parents, decided that for us because they determined that it was the identity that would give us the most freedom to explore our individuality, our confidence, our capacity and belief to do anything. Doesn't mean this country's perfect. I think they knew that. But it's certainly the ideals and principles that, it represented to be an American. That's something in the world. And back in the 1990s, we were the sole superpower in the world. It was a different time. But boy, were we lucky to have lived that kind of a life. And I want to be able to gift my son some of that as he gets older too.
So now that the book is out and you've had time to talk about it and digest it, and it's like the best shrink in the world, right? When you see your life laid out in front of you. Was that book healing for you? I mean, not that, everyone needs a little healing, but did the book make you come to terms with everything and now have all the energy and strength to go forward, whatever path?
Oh, Joan, it's almost like you've been in my head for the last few days. It was the greatest therapy, just putting it all, first of all, on the page and having had to have processed it because, I got to a very low place and a very, very low place. And I think one of the reasons the book has actually connected, I'm very grateful for this with some people, and particularly during the pandemic, is that mental health in particular has become increasingly a topic that's less taboo. I mean, there was a lot of pressure for me to write this book earlier, right after the 2016 campaign, or maybe even after the 2008 campaign, or right after my marriage fell apart in 2011. But I needed to do the work. I had to go get professional help. I went to go and see a qualified therapist to help, me work through that process. I wrote the book came out, and then just talking about it felt amazing. And every time I get a text message or a message on Instagram or Twitter, I didn't used to be on social media. I have been for the book tour. When I read these messages, I cannot even tell you, it brings me to tears when I hear other people's stories in America, but also around the world, of having to deal with something really, really hard and not sure they could get to the other side. It doesn't mean my healing is complete by any means. I mean, I think I'll be working on myself for the rest of my life. And in fact, I was just in Paris for a work trip, and I, just got some bad news, and I found myself like getting back to that place where I was just really sad.
Right.
And so, no, it's not, I've done and I've moved on. It's constantly doing the work and looking on the bright side and believing in hope. And isn't that what resilience is? You get up every single day and think, okay, today's going to be better than yesterday, because yesterday was pretty horrible. I've had a lot of horrible yesterdays. I've had a lot of phenomenal yesterdays. And I think what I've accepted, and maybe today's the day I needed to be talking to you about this, is that there will still be bad days. It's not going to be perfect. But right. I am going to believe that there will be more good days than bad days, and I'm glad to be able to share that with people.
And you also had a problem which a lot of people don't have. You were going through literally the worst in public, and yet you had your job, which was 24/7. So you couldn't take the bad, the sad, the angry, the humiliated on that stage. You had to go do your job no matter what. And you did, so you couldn't really grieve the way one has to grieve to deal with it. So the book really served a very important purpose, not only a gift for your child to know about the family, beside the other stuff and the history and all the things that makes one proud.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It gave you an opportunity too to heal as much as one can heal from trauma and stress.
Yeah, exactly right. And part of it is, and I write this in the book, that I had gotten very good at compartmentalizing. So I could have these really awful, horrible personal experiences and conversations. And then we were getting up the next day. It's why the section in the book about the State Department, which is, where I worked when everything fell apart, I share the stories. I mean, we were traveling around the world. I mean, she was going to strategic dialogues in China, and I was working on that. We were traveling to Africa that week for some important diplomatic efforts. So it was very easy for me at the time sort of turn off the switch of my heart is broken, because we had, really important things to do. And I share a story in the book about, feeling in conflict about my marriage. And we had landed, I was walking with a good friend and colleague, Philippe Reines, and we had landed in Haiti because there had just been this earthquake, and thinking to Philippe, I'm having some trouble in my personal life. And then looking around me and saying, what is wrong with me? I mean, I have such extraordinary privilege. I have a man, exactly, who loves me, and I have all this uncertainty, and look at this devastation. People have lost everything. What is wrong with me? So it was this constant reminder that no matter what, and even today I have that even on days I feel bad, I know there is somebody who has it worse than I have it, by far. And it helped me get through it then. And it continues. It's a good reminder to have now. I don't think we should ever feel settled in who we are, what we're doing. I think we should always be working on ourselves.
No, we can't. And that's part of the problem of the pandemic was, the nothingness for so many people, not willingly, but part of this whole thing. We have to learn to step over it now and energize ourselves and get involved in the world again, and especially the political world. It's urgent that we all understand that we have a responsibility. And speaking of that, have you given thought or had time to give thought to what the next phase will be, or are you letting it happen?
I thought the short answer is I think I'm now actively really trying to figure out what it is I want to do when I grow up. I think Hillary Clinton's always going to be part of my life. I will always, be there to support her in any way that she needs the support. But I do think at 46, trying to figure out what my next adventure is going to be. Maybe it'll come to me, but I think more than likely, I think I have to start getting up and dusting off my resume and doing something about it. And I'm hoping to do that actually in the coming weeks.
And I know people have talked about you running for office and things like that. And, basically you were referred to as a quiet person, always making important decisions and things. But in the book, you yell loud and clear. So maybe all the things you thought you couldn't do about running for office, maybe you can do.
Yeah, maybe. I don't see myself running for office because and this has taken me some years to get to. It's not that I don't think I'd be good. I do think I'd be good. And I think the Huma even of a year ago would have said, I have no idea. I'm not sure. I just know what it takes. I know what it takes to run for office. I know the commitment, the sacrifice, I'd have to make in terms of my family, my son especially. And it's hard out there, and it's only gotten worse. And I have certainly lived in the cauldron of the nastiness. Right. The worst. The worst of the worst. So it's not that appealing to me in the moment. But who knows? Maybe I will one day. I don't see it in my cards at the moment.
Okay, but you certainly didn't see being chief of staff of Hillary Clinton either when you were trying to figure out who I am and what I want to be.
No, you're right. Actually, Joan, somebody said this to me the other day when they had read the book, and they said, it's really interesting. You never advocated for yourself. You just took whatever you were given.
Right.
And I
made
thought,
it work.
Exactly. And that really was an aha moment. It was just an interview I did recently, and I thought, you're 100%. I didn't think about it the entire time I wrote the book, but it is absolutely right. And maybe this is a female thing, or maybe this is just a me thing, or maybe this is a thing about women who were born in the 70s. I just took whatever was given to me. And I think now I need to shift and say, I want, or I can do this. And I intend to do that. What it is, I haven't figured that out yet, but maybe you'll have me back on, and by then I'll have figured it out.
Absolutely. But you know what? It's like women have learned, no matter what culture we're from, how to be the best little girl in many cases. You know, don't complain. Even your beloved father was what he learned to take what was given and made it something extraordinary. So you watch and you do that. But now that you've mastered that, now it's time to go on and say, hey, you know, beat the drum, pound your chest, and go for it. And your kid will get it because he's grown up in it and he understands.
Right. Yes. Yes. And I want him to, I talk a lot about in the book about how hard it is for women in politics, certainly how hard it was for Hillary and what we had to go through, what I had to go through as a Muslim woman of color in politics. So that, it's not very many of me around, and the hate and the vitriol that we had to deal with. And so I want to raise a 10-year-old boy who learns not just to respect women, but not to fear our power, because I think so much of it is about, how are we raising the next generation? When I was younger and when I was a young woman, and what I believe was a cliche when Jackie Kennedy did an interview and she said, the most important thing we can do is to raise our children right. That's the most important thing. And I thought, I rolled my eyes a little bit, didn't have kids, couldn't really appreciate it. But really 100% of it is correct. I mean, you think about some of the actions and the activities that we have experienced in the last couple of years, particularly as it relates to some, behavior, and that includes my ex. What is it about, how we raise our children so that they feel loved and supported and confident, and that it's okay to talk about their feelings? I was raised in a culture where you didn't really talk about your feelings. My mother resisted ever talking to a therapist, even though our whole family was going through the trauma of potentially losing my father. I don't talk to my son that way. I encourage him to talk about his feelings and to allow himself to, experience that. And I think it's just so important to do that for our children.
Without question. It's funny. I did the same thing so many years ago. My parents always was, fa la la, everything's great. Don't tell the kids anything bad or how you feel or how you're hurt. And so my poor kids, they heard everything until they were yelling, enough already. Don't share so much.
I think I'm on that path. I think Jordan's going to be like that too. Enough, Mom.
Right. Mom, I'm sorry. Quiet. That's it. And then you're going to have to say, I used to be quiet, but that's over. Anyway, there's so much more in the book that we have to talk about. So you're going to come and visit me again. The memoir is called Both and A Life in Many Worlds, and it's more important than ever to read it with what's going on in the world and go on this incredible journey. And as we say, only in America, the good, the bad, but never-ending opportunities. So here's to the future, Huma. Come visit me again.
I look forward to it. I've so enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for having me. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, so thrilled to be on your show.
I'm grateful. Thanks, and say hello to the one and only Mrs. Clinton. We'll do this again. I promise all of you. I'm Joan Hamburg, and you're listening to WABC.